Hello everyone, this is Aya from Hinawi Software. Our topic for today is regarding the stop or release salary form. So basically this is part of the HRMS menu and part of the HRMS activities basically. And as you can see here, this is the entire roadmap for the HRMS activities. We have created this Excel file, we have created this Excel sheet in order to make it easier for users, for clients, customers, to make it easier for them to understand the software, to understand the different parts of the HRMS module, how to use those parts, how to follow the specific workflow. That is the main reason why we created this Excel sheet. So basically I have made an entire video about the general HRMS roadmap where I explained the content in general, but there is a specific individual video regarding each and every part and activity of the HR. And our topic for today is regarding the stop or release salary form. As you can see here, this is the title displayed along with all the other titles. We have minimized them all in order to make it easier for us to focus on this title along with the memo, the salary sheet, and along with the column on the left side. So basically this column on the left side is the action. This means that there are several actions that can be done on a specific activity in the HRMS module, and we will cover those actions regarding those two categories. So basically we have two categories. The first category is stopping the salary, which means creating a new stop for the salary. However, the second part is releasing or deleting the stopped salary. We will see the difference between deleting and releasing, and we will see what actions apply to those two categories. Let's start with the first activity, which is creating. So basically, is it possible to create an activity regarding stopping the salary or creating the release or the deleted stopped salary? The answer is yes for both of them. And notice here that those two are highlighted in orange. This means that they have direct effect on the salary sheet. And if the salary is stopped, basically you cannot create the salary sheet for the selected employees. It has to be and must be released back or deleted in order for us to proceed forwards with creating the salary sheet. So everything that is highlighted in orange has direct effect on the salary sheet. Now, after creating that stopped salary, is it possible to edit that? The answer is no. You can either stop or release it back or delete it, but you cannot edit the stopping, because if once it's stopped, it's literally just stopped. Same thing applies to editing the released or the deleted stopping salary. The answer is no. You cannot edit a released or a deleted stopped salary. Once you release it, it's released. Same thing applies to voiding or cancelling, because you cannot void or cancel a newly created stopped salary or a newly released or deleted stopped salary. Is it possible to delete those? The answer is no for creating the stopped salary. So once you create a stopped salary, you cannot delete that, but you can delete the salary once it's created, once it's stopped. So basically when you stop the salary, there is an option to delete that stopping, but you cannot delete that here at the beginning. It's just created to be stopped, then deleted. So that's why the answer here is yes, which means that you can delete a stopped salary. Next, moving on to printing, you cannot print the stopped salary and you cannot print the salary which is released back. You can print it using other forms or other windows, such as the salary sheet itself there, where you can see all salaries and print them. There isn't any print clearance for stopping the salary. Same thing for the releasing or the deleting of the stopped salary. You cannot have the print clearance. It's not applicable. Basically, it's applicable for other activities which will be covered in later videos. But as of now, regarding the stopped and released salary, you cannot have the print clearance. And there isn't any design, basically, a specific designing or printing activity form regarding that stopped salary. It can be used for other activities. You can design and print that activity form, but not for releasing, since it's like a very simple process. It's straightforward. Basically, it doesn't have any steps further, so it doesn't require any designing. It's just stopping or releasing and deleting back. Same thing applies to the predefined template. There isn't any predefined template for importing any employee who has a stopped salary, or autofilling the employees which have their salaries stopped. It's entered at the moment itself of stopping their salaries, not at the time of, for example, at the time of importing or autofilling. Let's see here, we have the date, such as the requesting date, the starting date, and the ending date. This is in fact and indeed applicable for both of them, whether you are stopping the salary or deleting that stopped salary. For both of them, you can have a start date and an end date. And regarding the date from and date to, which is normally within the same month, this is not applicable for stopping the salary, because it might not be for the same month, like it might not follow this. However, when you release or delete the stopped salary, you can decide this, and it is applicable to be released back. At the time of creating the stopped salary, it's not for sure, but at the time of releasing or deleting the stopped salary, it might be possible actually to have it in the same month. So that's why the answer is yes. Now, those columns here regarding the month from, month to, year from, year to, released, and hours and days are not applicable. All these fields you see here are not possible for the stop or the release of the salary, basically because you cannot stop the salary in hours. You can only stop it in months. And the releasing here is possible because release on this row is the same as release from here, so it's possible to release the salary back, but you cannot stop it for like a specific number of hours. That's why the answer is no. Same thing applies here to the percent of employee. It is not applicable for stopping the salary. You cannot say that for example, this employee has their salaries stopped depending on a specific percent of their salary, because once it's stopped, and when it's released without depending on the percent. Same thing for the overtime criteria, whether it's 1.25 or 1.50, either ways it's not used for the stop or release salary. Taxes is not applied as well, because taxes is applied in the salary sheet form itself, not in the stopping of the salary. And employee pension and monthly provision both are not used for the salary stopping or the salary releasing. There is an important memo here which states the following. It states that kindly use the stop or the release salary activity for employees who suddenly got absent for some time. For example, if it's 1 to 2 to 3 days, this is used. However, in the other cases where employee did not, for example, say whether it's in days, weeks, or months, then in that case, you can use the leave without pay instead. It's like more recommended then. Let's move to the approvals criteria. Is there any approval for stopping the salary or releasing it back? The answer is no, which means that by default, editing, voiding, and deleting after approval does not apply. And in general, for other activities, when you approve a specific activity, it's possible to approve more than one activity at the same time, like a group of activities for more than one type of activity or more than one employee name. So that is possible. Same thing applies to creating the salary sheet. So let's say, for example, an employee has their salaries stopped and then released back. After that salary is released back, you can create the salary sheet, and then you can specify whether that salary sheet is created for all these employees who got released, or all the entire list of employees in the business or the workplace, or specific number of employees based on their departments and positions. All these things are applicable. And there isn't any setup for the stopping or the releasing of the salary, and there isn't any effective date either in the setup, since it happens like suddenly in a specific time where it just suddenly stops the salary for employees. There isn't any previous setup regarding this matter. An important point which should be taken into consideration here is the status of employees, because once you stop the salary for employees, their status will not be active anymore. It will be inactive, meaning that their names will not be in the list for searching, and they cannot have any activities created for them, like such as leaves. They are inactive in the entire system, and they will not even be seen in the salary sheet. So at the time of creating the salary sheet, their names will not even appear there. Once we release them or delete the stopping of their salaries, they will be active back again. And deleting the stopped salary means that you don't even want to take it into consideration as if the salary was not stopped in the first place, as if it has never been stopped. However, when you release the stopped salary, it means that yes, it did get stopped for some time, but then later on it got released back and the employee's status is active and they can now be seen in the salary sheet anymore. Now, regarding the accounting effect, there is a credit side, basically, on the released or the stopped salary sheet. That credit side is the credit accrued AC. But there isn't for the stopping of the salary, there's only for the releasing or the deleting of the stoppment. And regarding the payment methods, actually, there isn't any payment method for cash, check, or bank transfer regarding stopping or releasing the stopped salary. Meaning that when an employee's salary is stopped or released back, you can't have any cash payment for them. You can't have any check payment or any bank transfer. And this makes sense, actually, because they don't even appear in the system as active anymore. They don't have their salary sheets active. So there isn't any payment methods. Regarding the salary sheet, you cannot even see the employee in the list. So there is the salary sheet for those who are released or deleted in their stopped salary. And this is highlighted in orange because it is affecting the salary sheet, straight direct effect on the salary sheet, which means that when you stop their salaries and then you release or delete that stop, then you can proceed forwards and have them listed in the salary sheet where they can have their salary sheet created successfully. And the debit side of that is the debit salaries, DR salaries, debit salaries. Now, what is the salary status of the employee once he or she has his or her salary stopped? So the salary by default is also stopped. But once it's released or deleted, the salary sheet status will be active again and they will be capable of having the salary sheet effects on them. Now, is this applied for HR users or HR employees and timesheet employees as well? The answer is yes. It doesn't depend on a specific employee type. You can release the stopped salary and you can create a stopping in the salary for both timesheet and HR employees. And although we have a web module and a mobile module for Hinawi Software, but you cannot stop the salary of employees or delete or release that salary in either web and mobile modules. You can only stop and release the salary back in the desktop version itself, not in the web and the mobile versions. So that's another point which should be taken into consideration. As I have mentioned, this is the column regarding the salary sheet, which is highly affected by the stopping of the salary and the releasing back of the salary. It's very important to keep this in mind, that you must release or delete the stopped salary in order to create a salary sheet successfully. There will be an entire video about salary sheet where I'll explain further details. But for now, all we have to know is that they are linked together and they have direct effect. Let's talk a little bit about the memo now. In the memo here, as you can see, you have to make sure that the user has the effective date set successfully, meaning that it is linked with so many different activities, and you have to make sure that all these activities have their effective dates entered and inserted correctly in order to have the accurate and the precise effect on the salary sheet. And you must always read the messages before saving. because once you save, it's too late to change your mind. So make sure you read messages, pop-up messages on the screen before saving, and always check the employee's status of the salary sheet in order to make sure why, for example, their names or their name is not appearing in the salary sheet. And you must follow the system rules, because if you break them, it's like customer responsibility basically. And for example, an employee has so many leaves, you must check leave return. You must return that employee from the leave, since it's highly important to make and let the system understand when the employee is back, whether earlier, on time, or later. Another thing which should be taken into consideration is that the users can create multiple loans at the same time, but you have to approve each one in order to proceed successfully. And one more point here is that, for example, in a addition or deduction form, you have to make sure whether it's automatic or manual in order for you to know whether approval is required or not. And regarding the calculation of annual leaves balance, the system will read the total due days from the joining date until the start date of the leaves minus the total number of days already taken before. So basically, this is used in case the opening balance of leaves is not used. So that's the way of calculation which should be taken into consideration and kept in mind. And in case of opening balance, the system will not take the joining date, it will take the next day of the opening balance. So that's how it works regarding opening balance and the days. And as you see here, the majority of activities require approval before proceeding forward with creating the salary sheet. Not all of them, of course, contain the approval option or function, but the majority of them, like 90%. And you have to know that you cannot create the salary sheet of any month until the previous month is created. You cannot skip months. And the system can do partial approval of the salary sheet based on different positions, departments, or employees. Also, once the payroll starts, like once the date of the payroll starts, you cannot change your mind into a different start date of the payroll because it has already begun. And always remember, of course, to post the approved activities to accounting, and always make sure that the payment of employee must be from the HRMS menu, not from the accounting menu, because that's the purpose of having an ERP system, is to have the workflow running smoothly without going back and forth. And payment regarding the salary sheet for the same employee cannot be split. It can be split among different employees, but not for the same employee. And this is an important point regarding the stopping or the releasing of the salary. As I said, when do we use the stopping or the releasing? When the employee suddenly gets absent for a few days without giving a previous notice. But if it's like for weeks, months, then in this case, leave without pay is like more recommended. Now, in the absconded workers, as you can see here, this is used when we have official data that he or she, like the employee, is not in the country. That's when it's used. Absconded workers basically is similar to stopping the salary, but the difference is that stopping the salary is that when it's certain that the employee is in the country, but absconded is like when they ran away, not from the business or the workplace only, but from the country even. So this is regarding the stopping and the releasing of the salary. Let's talk a little bit about the absconded workers, because we have said now the difference between stopping or releasing the salary and between the absconded workers, but let's see how this works in reality. Like, let's see how it functions accurately based on the different actions. So basically, the absconded worker form is split into two types, into two categories. It's divided into being absconded and to releasing or canceling that being of absconded. The first row here is similar to stopping or releasing, which means that creating an activity is possible for the absconded worker and it can be released or cancelled back, and it's highlighted in orange because it has direct effect on the salary sheet. However, you cannot edit that absconded worker, and you cannot edit that release or canceling. Same thing as we said here in the editing of the stopped salary. Next, we have the voiding or the canceling, which follows the same concept of being no for all of them, since you cannot void or cancel an absconded worker which has been like absconded or basically released back. Next, we have in the deleting, as you can see here, it was not possible to delete a newly stopped salary, but now in the absconded worker, it's possible to delete being absconded, and it's possible to delete the releasing of that absconding. Next, we have printing. Basically, it is possible to print the form of being absconded. This applies. And printing the clearance, or basically the print clearance form, is not applicable on being absconded. It's applicable on other activities, which will be discussed later, but not on the absconded workers form. Same thing applies to designing and printing the activity form. The answer is no for both of them. It's not applicable. And having a predefined template for importing or autofilling is also not there, since being absconded happens at the moment, like at the time the employee just ran away. You cannot know before time when will they run away, because they haven't gave any previous notice, right? Here in the start date and ending date, it is possible to have a start date and an ending date regarding the absconded worker, because if they ran away, it is a possibility that they come back. They might not run forever. So that's why it's set as yes here. But the date from and date to, normally within the same month, is not applicable on the absconded workers, because it might not be for sure whether they're coming back in the same month or not. But once they come back, it might have a possibility to be in the same month or in a different month. Let's see here, all these columns are set as no, which means that you cannot see that month from, month to, year from, year to. It's not applicable on being an absconded worker because it's not for sure. However, releasing is applicable, because when a specific like worker or employee is stopped or like absconded, it is a possibility that they might be released back. However, you cannot make an employee absconded for a specific number of hours. Like, this is not a possibility. Having employees absconded in hours is not applicable and does not apply here. Percent of employees' salary is also not there for being absconded, because when an employee is absconded, it does not read from their percentage of their salaries. Once it's absconded, it's just absconded. The overtime, whether it's 1.25 or 1.50, is not applicable for being absconded, because the overtime is applicable for other types of activities, like for other forms, such as a timesheet form, which will be covered in a later video. But as of now, overtime and taxes is not applied to absconded workers. Same thing here regarding the employee pension and the monthly provision, which is not applicable for either being absconded or for releasing and being cancelled. Let's see here this note, this memo. It states that in the absconded worker form, an activity is used when there is official data that the employee, which is he or she, has left the job for, or the country itself even. In this case, the employee is selected as run away. So basically, run away and being absconded is the same thing. In other words, it says here that being absconded is similar to stopping the salary, but the difference is that stopping the salary is that when we're certain the employee is in the country, but in the absconded workers, when it's not 100% sure where his or her location is. And notice here that we don't have any approval form, any approval feature or request regarding being absconded, which is similar to stopping the salary. And since there isn't any approval for those two, this means that there isn't by default any editing in after approval, any voiding after approval, or any deleting after approval, since there isn't any approval in the first place. And that feature, by the way, being absconded or choosing an employee to be absconded, definitely depends on the permissions given to that employee, whether he or she can and have like certain features or certain requirements, certain allowances to make that employee or change that employee's status to be absconded. So there might be a limitation, and there might not be, based on the permissions and the user access list in the system. And as you can see here, this is very similar to the released and stopped salary regarding the setup, because there isn't any setup for being absconded, and there isn't any specific effective date for the absconded, because it might happen anytime, right? Now let's talk a little bit about the employee's status. As you can see here, this is very similar to stopping the salary, because once you stop the salary and once you stop the person and make him or her absconded, the status of the employee will be inactive, meaning that they will not be displayed in the searching lists and they will not be having any activities performed on them. They will just be stated as inactive. But once you cancel being absconded or release it back, it will come back to be active again, and it will be seen in the salary sheet, because here, once it's absconded, it's not seen in the salary sheet at all. And regarding this category of the accounting effect, there is a credit side for the released or the cancelled absconded worker, and that credit side is the same credit side for the stopping or releasing of the salary. As you see here, both of them have the credit of accrued AC. And regarding the payment methods, of course, by default, there isn't any payment for people or like employees who got absconded. So since they got absconded, since they ran away, there isn't any feature to pay cash for them, to pay check or bank transfer, or even updating to ledger. But there is a possibility to pay for them using the salary sheet, which is JV, once they got released back, once they are cancelled and being absconded. In this case, they will be displayed in the salary sheet, where they can have all the different activities of the salary sheet performed on them. And the debit side in this case will be the debit salaries, just like the salary which has been stopped and released back. Now, the salary status of employees who got absconded is of course stopped. They will not appear in there, but once they are released or cancelled, their salary status will be active again. There isn't any collection category applicable on the absconded workers, just like the stopped or released salary form, and it is applicable for both types of employees, whether HR employee or timesheet employee. In both ways, they can have their salaries or statuses absconded if they suddenly ran away. And although we have a web module and a mobile module regarding Hinawi Software, but it cannot be used to change that employee to being absconded. So we do have a web module and we do have a mobile module, but there isn't any feature of changing an employee's status to be absconded from them. It's only from the desktop application, which is the largest module, the largest system, the largest ERP system we have, containing all modules and all features. As I said, all these like different activities and actions will depend and will affect the salary sheet. So therefore, before creating the salary sheet, which will have an entire video about it, before proceeding with that, you have to make sure that the employee is no longer absconded and no longer having his or her salary stopped. Same memo, which I have discussed, depends and will definitely be taken into consideration all the time when proceeding with such activities, whether we're talking about being absconded or stopping the salary and releasing it back. So that is the video for today. I hope it was clear, easy, straightforward, and I hope I delivered the points accurately and precisely. Please don't forget to like this video and watch our other videos and share this video with everyone interested in our ERP system. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you.